Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic and we are starting the year in the best way possible. We're down at Brooklands for the New Year's Day meet. Allegedly there's over 1,000 cars here and there's definitely over 1,000 people because as you'll see in today's video, this site is like the January sales times a million. You can barely move around, but it's quite exciting because there are so many brilliant cars here that we've already spotted and we've only just parked up. So as you can see here, we brought Mary today. We came all the way from Coventry down to Brooklands. 4 of us in the car, along with a painting from the 1960s. Long story, don't ask. And we have had a real hoot coming down. But let's go and have a look and see what we've got here down today at the Brooklands New Year's Day meet.
If you've never been to Brooklands before, I wanted to give you a bit of a scale for how big this thing is, because one of the things that I always mess up on, because I've been to this a few times, is I never arrive early enough. Also, I never seem to bring a good enough camera. Now, when I talk about Brooklands, one of the things I always say is that it really is an event for everybody. And I don't want it to feel like a hard sell, but I wanted to show you what I mean by this visually. Well, first of all, there are lots of pre-war cars, and this isn't really something you always expect, because sometimes when you go to a car show you'll see a lot of something, whether it's British cars or whether it's JDM Japanese stuff, but here you really do get a bit of everything. Now this front section at the front here, where you kind of see when you first come in, is mainly your pre-war stuff, although you'll see as we go exploring that you'll see a lot more of this as we go. And I wanted to show you some of these because it's not just your belt and braces pre-war stuff as well. You do get some commercials, you get imports, and they're all in a mix of different conditions and states as well. So there's things that are a little bit rough around the edges. There are things that are quite obviously only brought out for high days and holidays. And there are also things which are modified as well. There really is no snobbery when it comes to this, because sometimes people look at Brooklands as a venue and seem to think that it's going to be a case of you should only bring your best stuff. Now, if you thought that a lot of this was just going to be pre-war or traditional classics, you're going to be in for a surprise, because later on I'm going to show you a car which I bet you haven't either seen in decades or have never seen at all. Now I would say, and this is a bit of a prompt to me actually to remind you, is you need to be getting there when it opens if you're hoping to see everything, because if you thought that earlier bit was everything, as you can see here, there are just hundreds of cars and everything is worth a look. There's no real filler, and there's also a mix of decades. So as you can see here, you've got everything mixed up. Nothing's really that organised in terms of how it's laid out. And I was talking about wheelchair accessibility. You can see here, people are milling around amongst the cars, and they do park everything thoughtfully as well, so that you can get down amongst it and really have a look. Now, I was talking about some of the rare cars here. This Simca really caught my eye because I thought, didn't expect to see this today. And this, again, like many of the vehicles here, is in real fine shape and not something you perhaps expect to see out on New Year's Day when the weather isn't expected to be very good. I just wanted to show you a few more of these cars down here. Now, there's a lot of stuff. And so what I'm going to do is just let you have a little look around here, and we'll catch up in a bit as we wander up. Now, I just want to point out that you'll see me zoom in on a couple of bits and pieces, and that's because for me, these are the standout cars. And actually, I might show you one of my favourites. Now, it wasn't a favourite for me, but I had to show you this. Look, I just had to zoom in. Have you seen this? Look, it's an Italian registered Zephyr. Couldn't really work out what was going on here, but they had some paperwork in the car to say that it was originally registered in Italy, and I think it had been driven over, especially for the show. It didn't seem to be something that somebody had here full time. So I thought that was rather remarkable, really, in a world where many people seem to think that you can't really drive classics. Now, I want to show you probably my favourite car of the show, or certainly one of my favourites, which was this Ford V8 Pilot. Now, I think the last time I saw one of these was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and this one was in beautiful condition. Really lovely, love the colour of it. It's very reminiscent of that early BMC kind of porcelain green, really beautiful colour. But as you can see here, keeping something like this on the road in Great Britain is so much harder than America. So it was a real treat to see this here and to see it out. And I can't understate, especially for people that are watching from abroad, how hard it can be to bring out a classic car in winter, because you've got to take it home, you've got to clean it all up, not just on top but underneath as well, to stop degradation. Now, we were very lucky that because the weather has been especially mild this winter, I don't think I've seen the roads gritted probably in about 5 or 6 weeks, so there wasn't any residual grit out, which is probably why a lot of people brought out some of these earlier cars and special cars for the event, although we have had a lot of flooding lately, which can sometimes make people slightly nervous about bringing these cars out. Now, if you're wondering perhaps why I've voiced this over today and there's a lot of music, it's because, and I don't know if you were able to see it in that early pan round on the first section, but they've had music and bands throughout, which makes it particularly tricky with YouTube, because it means that I'm not able to just plonk the footage straight up, because sometimes YouTube takes umbrage with that and it just essentially demonetizes your video, strikes it, or takes the video down completely, and I didn't really want to risk that. Now, talking about the breadth of cars, you've got a lot of American stuff as well, which is always a treat to see. And then I didn't know exactly what this was, and you're about to see what I'm going to show you in just a second. Loved this Landy, by the way. It's always great to see a series out, especially just on show. Some of these were particularly nice, but it was this. I didn't really understand what was going on with this. And unfortunately, one of my biggest bugbears about this particular show is, and look, everybody has the right to go off and enjoy themselves, is that you don't tend to get owners sitting behind cars, which means that my format that I like to do at Festival of the Unexceptional, where you get a bit of a chat with the owners and find out the stories about the cars, you're not really able to do at a show like this. So for this, it's almost as though we're walking around together and chatting to you, as I chat to my friends as we walk around, and we say, oh, that's nice. Hey, look, this was nice. Bit of a sucker for a Roots Group car. But anyway, what I was saying was essentially is that I'm not able to grab people and get some of the stories, and sometimes for me, that's one of the greatest bits. I did have a really great chat actually with a couple of the standard owners, and we were talking about my hunt for a standard 8 or a standard 10. So again, just solidifying my view that standard owners are always so friendly. But as you can see here, I know I keep saying it, but there really is such a fantastic selection. Now, if you know about Brooklands, you'll know that Brooklands used to be a racetrack. Essentially what it was. And what have they done with the old racetrack? Well, here you go. They let you park on it for this event. Although I did get in trouble because you're not supposed to climb up onto the embankment. And this lady blew a whistle at me and made me get down, which was quite hard because I was wearing high-heeled boots and I had to get a bit of a hand down. But we're about to come and see probably one of the most exciting cars that was at Brooklands this year. And as you can see here, the really is quite an array of different cars. This was particularly special, but I'm building up a little bit of a hype here because there was a particularly special larder here, which for me stole the show completely. When we spotted this, we just stopped filming and we just went straight in and we said, right, we need to go and have a look at this. And it's a Lada Samara, and I've never seen one of these in real life, or certainly don't have any recollection of it. Now, this is for sale. And if you're inclined to do so for perhaps Festival of the Unexceptional or our upcoming event, Rustival, this might be a really good shout. And if you want to buy that, I've stayed on that bit of footage long enough with the owner's details on, so you can go back in the video and just pause on it and take the owner's details down. I can't really put them in the description box below because people harvest videos and pinch details. Now, I've always heard about Larder garages also selling Protons, and so you can see it in the dealership sticker here. If you wanted something that's a little bit rough around the edges but is surprisingly original, that's quite a good bet. Now, there's lots of other stuff here, so we'll go for a little browse around, and then I think we should have a look at some planes. In many ways, Brooklands is a victim of its own success for this show because there are so many great cars outside that you just don't end up enjoying the museum. But it is worth saying that Brooklands is a museum. So if you do want to come throughout the year, you can come and see great things like this. Or perhaps the ladies' reading room, which is laid out exactly as it was at the time of Brooklands' heyday. Now, if you're wondering what that means, this is the exact furniture they used, all the furnishings, all the bits and pieces that were there in the ladies' waiting room. They're here and you can come and have a look at them. And for me, that's incredibly special that they've kept all of that and you're able to see it and you're not paying any extra. But for me, it was all about the cars. So let's go straight back out to the cars and have a look at what we've got. Now, I skip over this quite quickly, but that Reliant Rebel, lovely to see that out, and such a rare car as well. Something that you just don't see. And in fact, I think the last one I saw was the Practical Classics one that they used for the charity run. I think it was called Rebel with a Cause. They did some really great stuff with that. Anyway, going back to the cars, as you can see here, there's just some really great stuff. Now, I hate to single anybody out, but that Triumph did put my hair on end slightly. It's a little bit rough around the edges. But again, you know, we talk about everybody being welcome. They really are. It's not condition dependent to come down to this one. So you do see a really good little mix. When we talked about the planes, we didn't just stop at where we were, because outside you've got all sorts of planes from a more modern era, including Concorde, which I think is a rather fantastic thing to have, and you can pay extra to go up on and have a look, but I just ran out of time because the thing is whilst this does start at 9 a.m, people seem to be quite quick to leave. Now, two of my favourite vehicles that were here, by the way, are these two. Now, these are two permanent fixtures at Brooklands. They are I think, what's the correct terminology? Air Force vehicles, air site vehicles. You've got the BMC truck, which I adore, which would have been used to deliver fuel. And then you've got the ambulance here as well, which would have been used for on-site workers. They're here every year, so I assume that they're permanent fixtures. And if you're wondering what's under Concorde, if you wanted a bit of a better look, you've got a selection of rather grand vehicles. You've got a mixture of Rolls Royces and Bentleys parked under here. But anyway, back to the everyman cars, which I quite like. Now, this lady's Subaru Brat put a massive smile on my face. But again, just having a quick look round. We're kind of wrapping up at this point because a lot of people are starting to head off. And for a bit of a time check on where we were in the day, At this point, it was only, I think, around 11 o'clock. So if you are getting here, you need to be getting down early. And I think you can start queuing from around 8:45 for 9 a.m. entry. But you need to be feet on the ground, getting around it. And there needs to be a real strategy to it. So usually I say to you all, you've got kind of a leisurely stroll around. With this, don't waste any time in the cafe. Come back to the cafe at the end, get your feet on the ground and get walking around, because otherwise you're going to be in the same position that I was and you're going to start missing out on cars. But there was one car that I was glad that I didn't miss out on, and this is going to be such a Marmite car. For me, I thought this is brilliant. A slammed Austin Allegro estate. Not something you're going to see every day. And a lot of people are very down on Austin Allegros, but you never meet an Allegro owner who isn't fully into it. You never meet someone who's like, yeah, I've got an Allegro and it's okay. Allegro owners love them. So there must be a certain magic to ownership that people really get behind. And by this point in the game, I think, well, all the bad cars have been taken out of circulation through the scrappage or misadventure. So all the cars that are left are probably the really great examples. Now, what you find is, if you're a photographer as well, something to point out is that if you bring a camera down, you will get some fantastic shots, because you don't just get the cars, but you get all the backdrop as well and all the drama of that. I mean, when did you last get to shoot some of these everyday classics under giant planes? It's rather marvellous. But as you can see here, it's starting to look a little bit gappy, which means we're going to round up, and also the weather is slightly changing. But my goodness, did we see some fantastic cars today. I'd like to know what your favourite car is in the comment section below. What have you seen? Apologies if it's just been a bit of me nattering away to you as I natter away to my friends when we walk around shows. But I wanted to give you a bit of a flavour for this, not fixate too much on one particular car, and to give you a bit of inspiration, because this isn't the cheapest show of the year, but for me it's certainly value for money.
Look, I've got this sheepskin hat on and that sky is turning dangerously grey, which means it's definitely time for us to be getting home. We have had such a brilliant day out at Brooklands. It's been a cracking start to 2024, one that I wasn't expecting to do because we organised it all very last minute. So it's worth saying actually that you can pay on the gate if you're coming. That'll probably be the same for next year as well. But we're ending on a high note because we've looked at all these fantastic cars, but let's end it where we began, with the Morris Minors. We're going home in Mary, the Morris Minor, who has been brilliant on the way here, and our friends Moira and Steve are going home in their Morris Minor Joe. And we've got to get back to Coventry, they've got to get back to Brighton. Fingers crossed we all make it. But we did find out that we didn't have a spare coil in the boot of this car, so we thought we're going to get one at the Auto Jumble. Yep, there was an Auto Jumble here as well. This has got to be in your calendar for next year. Such a great day out. If you're in a wheelchair or you're struggling with a pushchair, you'll still be able to get around. I would say the vast majority of it. They do really great food here. You can pay on card. Everything's pretty much spot on, and there's nothing that you would have to worry about. Brilliant day out. Great thing to do in the winter when there's nothing to do, and I hope you've enjoyed all the cars. But until next Sunday, when we're doing something completely different, take care and drive safely.